Okay, for whatever reason, I don't have the notebook for lesson number 5, so I'm just going to talk to you about it as you go. So if you were to read in your book under radicals, it says the square roots. All positive numbers have 2 square roots. One's a positive number and one's a negative. And again, the positive square root is called the principal square root and is denoted by the symbol right here. So when you see that symbol, you're going to give the positive answer. Okay, so when it says, and I would circle the note, where it says note in your book, circle that. It says the square root of 16 is only a 4. Okay, circle that. That's very important that you do that. The square root of 16 is only a 4. That's in there in your book, just below square roots. Then it mentions again that cube roots are where 3, there's one cube root denoted by the symbol like this. So that's a cube root. The cube root, I'm just going to write this. You have this in your book. I'm just writing so you can tell where we're at. The cube root is 1,000. Whoops. Too many. The cube root of 1,000 is 10 because, remember, we did this yesterday, that 10 times 10 times 10. There has to be 3 of them, and they make the 1,000. Okay, so the cube root requires to have 3 numbers that multiply together to get the 1,000. All right, so if you go down the page a little bit, it says warm-up number 1. I'm going to clear this for right now. Okay, so it says 4, this is in your book, times 4 is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. So when you have this little symbol, we're only going to give the positive 4 as an answer. So you need to write this 4 in the blank. Then it talks about 5 times 5 times 5 equals, 5 equals 125. So the cube root of 125 is 5. So your first blank needs to have that. And then it has this symbol, and you need to put a 5. This is for your under warm-up. And similarly with 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So the 4th root of 16 is 2. And you can put this in over here. The 4th root, that indicates that, of 16 is 2. That's kind of the end. And it goes on to do so with 10. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 is a million. You could say because there's 6 of them, that's what you have in your book. So we can say the 6th root of 1 million is 10. All right, so let's try to move this down a little bit. Without making you sick, sorry. So where it says the square root of 49, you know the answer to that. This is easy. 7. How about the cube root of 64, but they have a negative in front of it? Do you know what the answer to that is? It's going to be a negative 4. Question C in your book says the 4th root of 10,000. Anybody want to guess? Yep, 10. Don't worry about it if it's a fraction. It's all right if it's a fraction. If it's the 5th root of 1 over 32, do you know what the 5th root of 1 is? Yeah, it's 1. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. And the 5th root of 32, does anybody know what it is? It's a 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 32. So don't let fractions freak you out. It's all right. Question E says, the 4th root of a negative 16. Now, if you remember from last year, if this 4, if the index is even, you cannot have a negative number. So this is not possible. You cannot take the fourth root of a negative number. The last question, F, says 2 cube root 125. If you recall, this 2 here is multiplying the answer to the cube root of 125. So this is going to be 2, and we're going to times it. What is the cube root of 125? Which number times itself 3 times gives you 125? Yes, 5, because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So your answer here is a 10. Okay, so those are all the questions on that first page. All right, let's turn the page and go to the next one. The next page, I'm just going to talk you through it, talks about the square root feature of the calculator. I'm not sure how to add a page. Maybe I'll just get a new one. Maybe. Sorry for all that. Okay, so we're going to get a new page. It talks about the square root feature, or when you want a different feature. So the square root button is on your calculator, and that's easier. But if you need the fourth root, it tells you what you're going to do. And you're supposed to, you write down the 4, the number that you want to have here, 4 or whatever it is. Then you go to math, this is in your book, and you choose the 5th option, which looks like this symbol. Then you type in your 10,000 and hit enter, and you get 10. So go ahead and use your calculator to evaluate the rest. So on question, this is example number 2, question A. Question is the 5th root of 1,024. You will type in, the first thing you will type in on your calculator is a 5. Then you will go and you will hit math, and you will choose the little X root symbol, and then you will type in the answer under the radical, which is 1,024. And when you hit enter, you should get the answer to be 4. Okay, so you type in this number first, then you go to math and get your radical sign with your 1,024. So for B, your keystrokes for the 7th root of negative 2,187 will be, you will enter the 7 first, then the math button on your TI 83 or 84. Then you will get the radical symbol with the X in it, and then you will type in the negative 2,187, hit enter, and you will get negative 3. Okay, so that's just how you do the keystrokes on there. I'll give you a couple minutes to go and do the rest. Maybe press pause on this until you're all done. Okay, then we're going to talk about radicals. So this is under the box on your paper like this. It says radicals on it. Just some definitions so we can stop talking about numbers and signs. There are things I want you to catch on. So when it has this symbol in the middle, I want very much for you to know this is the index. This is the radicand. It has all of your paper for you. I want you to remember this. Okay, this symbol is the radical sign. Oops, sorry. This is all in your book. And then the whole thing, all together, is called a radical. Okay, so I want you to know that. The little note below, it's very important. It says when the index is not written in the radical, as in square root, it is assumed to be a 2. So if all you see is the square root of 16, you're going to assume that the index is a 2. It doesn't have to write it. If all you see is the square root of 16, you know that means, or sorry, a radical 16 without an index, you assume it's a 2. So the square root of 16 would be a 4. Okay? If they want the index to be something different than a 2, they will tell you. All right. Turn the page. Okay, So we're on page 35 right now. What's the page number? And it says identify the index and the radicand in each of the following. So question A, this is class example number 4. And question A says the fifth root of 75. So the index, pretty easy in this case. Index, yep, 5. And the radicand is the 75. And the square root of 50, what's the index? Well, it doesn't have one, so you assume it's a 2. And the radicand part is the 50. Oh, getting a little complicated. Okay, question C looks like this. It has 5 cube roots. Well, I should write that better. The 5 in the front, remember what it does? It is multiplying the radical. So it's 5 times the cube root of negative 1/10. So the index, that's the easy part, it's 3. And what's the radicand? The negative 1/10. The 5 out front does nothing but multiply it. Okay? All right. Now as you move down to the warm-up, we start talking some more about some rules. Right off the bat, it says that the square root of 9 times the square root of 4, we are allowed to do this. What we are not allowed to do is the square root of 9 plus the square root of 4 is not equal to the square root of 9 plus 4. When you can put them together under the radical sign, it's only true if you're multiplying or dividing, not when you're adding or subtracting. Do not be confused. Okay, so in general, it says down below, the square root of A times the square root of B is indeed the square root of AB. But that rule does not apply. You cannot squish them together if you're adding or subtracting. It is not equal to this. Okay, don't forget. Multiplying or dividing, you can put them together under the radical, but not if you're adding or subtracting. We could double check this. This will be 3 times 2, which is 6. And this is the square root of 36. Is that true? Yes. Is it true if we do this? This is the square root of 9 is 3 plus 2 is 5 over here. What do we get over here? Oh, the square root of 13. That is not 5. Does not work. Okay, so there's rules for multiplying and dividing. They work. All right, so down below in class example number 5, you will note that we have true and false question, example number 5. I won't write them down, but example A is true. B, you're dividing two radicals. Is that true? Yes, dividing works. How about adding? No, does not work. So the answer is A is true, B is true, C is false. Okay, on my clean page, we're looking through class example number 6. All right, it has the square root of 8 times the square root of 3. This is for A. What can we do with that? Well, if you're multiplying, you can put them together. That is true. Okay, how about for B? Square root of 7 times 3. What's true about that? Oh, that's easy. 21. How about when it's divide? Does that confuse you? Don't let it confuse you. You can just divide the radicals. Root 50 divided by root 10 is root. 50 divided by 10 is 5. That's your answer for C. And D, oh my goodness, square root, no big deal. Go with what you know first. Do you know what the square root of 100 is under there? Of course you do. It's 10. So I'm going to leave the outside square root and just work on this inside problem. And the square root of 100 is a 10. Copy everything else down. Do not skip steps. Now, can we divide two radicals together? Root 10 divided by root 2 leaves me with a root. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. That's your answer there. So do not panic if there's two radicals. Just work with what you know. Replace with what you know with what you can. The square root of 100 is 10. And go from there. Okay, I'm on class example number 7. If at any point you need to press pause on this video, feel free if I go too fast. Okay, this one is working backwards. It says express the product as a product. So we have square root of 77. Remember, product means multiply? So if I have the square root of 77, I need two things that multiply together to get 77. What would the answers be in there? Yeah, 7 and 11. That's not too hard. So for part B, if I have the square root of 27 and I want to break it into two parts, what two things multiply together to get 27? About 3 and 9. And C, the square root of 40, there's actually more than one answer. You need two things that multiply together to get 40. You could choose 4 and 10, or how about 2 and 20. Two different answers that work. Okay, hopefully that helps you, and you can go on and do your homework in lesson 5. Good luck.